Hello and welcome. It's Francis here. Thank you for coming back to my channel, and if this is your first time, well then I bid thee welcome. In this video I thought I might talk a little bit about the moon, the silvery orb that glides across the skies above us, and in particular the different phases and timings associated with the moon. No doubt most of us are aware that the moon has at least 4 phases that it goes through. We've got the new moon, the first quarter, full moon and the third quarter before it comes back to the new moon again. For those of us who are more very magically inclined or astrologically inclined, we break that down to 8 different phases from the new moon. So we have the new moon, the crescent moon, the first quarter, the gibbous, full moon, the disseminating, third quarter, the balsamic, and then the coming back to the new moon again. Probably more magically inclined people like myself, we add in another phase, we ending up with 9 phases, and that is the dark moon. And this phase is slotted in between the balsamic and just before the new moon, just before the first sliver appears in the sky. So we're sort of having a peak period, a peak where the moon is reaching its fullest at the full moon. Then at the dark moon, there's a certain timing, and for a brief moment in time where there's actually no moon at all in the sky. And as such, as the moon waxes and wanes and it ebbs and flows, so does the energy that we associate with it. As the moon moves from new to full, it waxes, it grows in strength, and as to, this is a perfect time for manifestation, for bringing in things into our lives, for abundance workings, prosperity, health, anything that we wish to increase along with the moon. At the full moon itself, I know some people sort of use it as the mighty big bang to give off any spell working, the added punch. I personally prefer to just use it as a sign of gratitude, of giving thanks for what I've achieved over the lunar cycle, also what I've learnt with the lessons and challenges that may have come my way. Then from the new moon through to the dark moon, the energies begin to wane, begin to diminish as the moon loses its strength, its power from our sight on earth. And this is a good time for banishings, for removing hindrances and obstacles from our life that may have prevented us from achieving those things that we wanted a couple of weeks earlier. Then when the moon has finally diminished from sight, it's almost like a pregnant pause, and this is the dark moon. To me personally, it is a time of big introspection, going really within, almost to meditate, to see if there's any messages coming through from our gods, or to communicate with them on a deeper level. Also a time to sort of contemplate the whole cycle of ebbing and flowing, and what I have achieved, what I haven't achieved, the workings I've done as to what's been beneficial, where I am at now, having released things, removed obstacles in order to bring in abundance or for other things to fruition in my life. Now as the moon sort of ebbs and flows through all the different phases, it also ebbs and flows or moves through different astrological signs. Just like the sun moves through different astrological signs, so does the moon. And these lunar signs, so to speak, or the lunar returns, can actually affect the mood of our day and how we feel emotionally about things. When the moon is in the sign of our own, say, natal moon, or even our own sun sign, that can also impact upon how we feel and also our magical workings. For example, I have a Leo moon, and according to the astrologers out there, and I'm not an astrologer myself, when the moon is in my Leo, well, then I am supposed to feel more heightened with my emotions, my intuition. I may become more moody. I know some people think I'm moody anyway. And it's also advised that this is probably not a good time for me to start new projects, not new external stuff. It's time to sort of like bring things close to home, focus more on me and what I've actually achieved, and just sort of nurturing myself a little bit more. Which, if you're looking at a Leo sun, doesn't sort of compute. But it's quite interesting how the moon sort of reflects things a little bit differently. So when it comes to magical workings and understanding the timings, there are a number of resources available. In particular, on the internet, there's one resource that I seem to use as my go-to, and that's a website called Time and Date. So it's timeanddate.com, and the reason I like this website is that it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can just put in your place where you're located. It doesn't have to have longitude or latitude, just city, town, location, and it will come up with not only the times of when the moon rises and sets, but the different phases that will go through, the timings for that, the timings of sunset, sunrise. Also it includes eclipses, and whether the eclipse is seen from your part of the world. And another benefit of this website is that it gives us the seasons, so it gives us the solstices and the equinoxes according to your location, which I find very handy. And this sort of ties in with a question that I was asked last month in relation to the full moon in December, where I posted that I had done a full moon rite on the 29th. Here in Australia, it was commonly advertised that the full moon was going to be on the 30th. So the person wasn't querying why I was doing it the day before. And there's a number of reasons for that. Make sure I'm not standing on my cup of tea. I used to do full moon gatherings, public full moon gatherings, for about 10, 15 years. They stopped probably about 5 or so years ago. And I used to always organise these gatherings so they would coincide on the evening before the full moon, because this usually allowed the participants time, if they wanted to do a personal ritual, time they can do it themselves, but also to ensure that we were working with the moon as it was on that incline, when it was still waxing, because at a certain time the moon has reached its peak, and then a second after that timing it begins to wane. So that has always been the foundation, that when I'm working with the moon, I work a little bit before the actual peak. I am aware that some people say that the moon, especially with the full moon energy, is up to 2-3 days either side. That's fine. I personally don't like using it after the timing. So when it comes back to this moon in December, I think from memory, the correct timing of when it was at its peak was about 2 a.m. and maybe it was 2 p.m. I don't know. It was around 2 o'clock, either in the morning or in the afternoon. I do prefer to use my do my rituals at night, especially for my moons. Where I go down to the beach, we'll get the moon rising behind us in the east and the sun setting in the west over the Gulf, and it's actually quite powerful liminal time on a number of occasions or purposes, because we're sort of the liminal space between the land and the sea, and then we've got the rising moon and the setting sun as well. So I wasn't going to stay up to 2 a.m. if it was 2 o'clock in the morning, or do a ritual in the afternoon if it was 2 p.m. So I just did it the day before, or the evening before, and that suits me, that suits my purpose. Now there is always a spanner in the works to that way of thinking, and looking at the moon diaries that I have for this coming year, there's going to be a bit of a quandary around about July, I think, where, according to one of these astrologers who's done one of these diaries, the moon, I think it's July, will actually be full on the 23rd of July in Capricorn, and that's usually for people in America, around LA and New York, I think are the 2 time zones she's got there. However, if you're living in London or even here in Australia, though she's only got Sydney, it doesn't come to its fullest until the following day, the 24th. But when it's full on the 24th, and even at the peak time where it is equating for Australia, it has actually moved from Capricorn into Aquarius. So that's quite interesting, and I haven't given this a lot of thought at the moment as to, if I do it the day before, if I do my full moon ritual the day before, the moon will actually be in Capricorn. So that has a different energy to an Aquarian moon. And I have to check to see what the time is on the 24th as to when it's peaking here in Australia. And I do sort of think from memory that it's again early morning. So it will depend on whether I'm going to stay up to utilise that peak or use the sort of waning aspect of a Capricornian moon at its fullest. I suppose it depends on what sort of ritual, or if I'm doing any magic. If I'm just doing a sort of a gratitude, it doesn't really matter. But if I'm doing some sort of spell working, it could actually have an impact on how I word the spell or my direction, how I work. I've got a couple of months now to think about that. So that's a little bit on moon timing, or how I work with the timings of the moon. I am currently in the process of, hopefully by the end of this year, I will actually have my next book ready to go to a publisher, and that just happens to be on the moon, and how I work with timings and the phases and the astrological signs, and a whole lot of other things that I've gathered over the last 20 odd, nearly 30 years of walking this path. So keep an eye out for that. If you work with the moon, especially with relation to timing in any other way, please feel free to leave a comment below. And apparently I'm supposed to be asking people to subscribe and share this video and my channel with other people. For those people who know me, I really suck with this sort of area of self-promotion. So I'll go now, and happy lunar workings. If you have any queries in relation to the moon, please again leave them below so I can address them at a later stage. Until then, blessings.